crashed into the World Trade Center.
Oh, there's another one. Another plane just hit. Oh my gosh, another plane has just hit.
Chaos. It's just chaos out here, it really is.
Lightning crashing and all mother died.
You do it now, and then you call up for the invocation. And then after the invocation, they're coming behind. Not the wreckage, let me tell you. So you welcome everyone. Nope, you're welcome. Oh, and you know what? I've got a couple scissors I can grab right now. Welcome. And then after the invocation, they go.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Harrington, and on behalf of the Foxborough Board of Selectmen and the entire community of Foxborough, we thank you for joining us today at this dedication of the Foxborough Never Forgets Memorial to 9/11. Throughout our history, certain events and images are engraved in our minds. Pearl Harbor, the day JFK or Martin Luther King were killed, the day Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and September 11th, 2001. I was working in Boston. My wife, Judy, was at home. She called me to tell me what was happening. I immediately came home, and our family sat in front of the TV for days, watching in horror and praying for those impacted by this tragedy. The impact of this day lives on. Families still grieve their loss, but they celebrate the lives of their loved ones too. The media and the internet spent the last few weeks retelling stories of loved ones who survived, loved ones who perished, and of heroes who sacrificed their life. In reality, all of those that were there that day are heroes, including Michael McGinty from Foxborough, who was killed. We will never forget the scene of brave firefighters and police officers running into buildings to save people. Just my job, said so many of them that survived. We lost over 400 firefighters and police that day, and many more suffer today the medical after effects of asbestos and other toxins. So it is so fitting to place this beautiful memorial at our public safety building. This memorial is a dream of one person, or should I say one family. Yet Chris Mitchell and his family give all the credit to the community that helped make it a reality, and to the leadership of one contractor, Mark Sullivan, who brought the dream to life. Mark passes the credit on to his own family for allowing him the time to build the memorial, and to the dozens of others who helped him. Chris, Mark, you and your team are American heroes as well. The community of Foxborough thanks all of those that helped to design, to build, and to fund this memorial. The memorial tells the story of what happened that day through 4 bronze plaques on your way to the 2 Twin Towers. This is especially important today since 25% of Americans today were either not born or were too young to remember 9/11. This memorial will be a part of the history lessons taught in our schools. It also provides a peaceful place for all to reflect about that day and how it changed our world. It is also a reminder of the power of a community to come together and to help each other. Al-Qaeda failed to achieve their goal that day, to destroy America. People like Chris, Mark, Cindy McGinty, and so many more within our community proved to Al-Qaeda that America is the most caring nation on the earth, and our spirit will never be broken. We thank the Foxborough Never Forgets Foundation for this wonderful gift, and we ask God to continue to bless this great nation and all her people, including our military personnel who are fighting the war against terrorism and all of our first responders. Foxborough will never forget the McGinty family or the effects of 9/11. And now, I'd like to ask for the invocation from Father Steve.
Almighty and ever-loving God, we remember September 11th, 2001, and pray for all of those who were affected by the terrible events of that day. We remember with love and respect all of those who went tragically to their deaths. We remember those who still suffer from the injuries of that day 10 years ago and pray for their recovery. We remember the still grieving families and friends and all who lost loved ones. Gracious Lord, comfort all who mourn, embrace all those in sorrow. Give courage to all who suffer. Continue to console them in the hope that all who trust in you will find peace and rest in your eternal kingdom. Bless them with your presence and surround us all with your love. God of peace, who vindicates all injustice, bless all of those defending and protecting our country and its ideals of freedom and liberty. God of all nations, look with love on this world and on its people. Restore tranquility to all nations and bless the work of your creation. Heavenly Father, answer our prayer and bring us hope through Christ your Son. May your kingdom of justice and of peace reign, and may the earth be filled with your glory. Amen.
I would now ask for the posting of the colors. Please stand.
Detail! Halt! Right! Haste! Detail! Freeze on! Halt!
I would now like to ask the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would now like to call upon Laura and Madeline Canfield to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Heat down! Order! Hold! Parade! Hold! Forward. Forward. March.
I would now like to introduce our dignitaries and honored guests. We have with us today Senator Jim Timilty, Representative Jay Barrels, from the Board of Selectmen, Jim DeVellis, Mark Sullivan, Linda Walsh, and Lorraine Brew. We have with us Town Manager Kevin Pecos, our Fire Chief Roger Hatfield, our Police Chief Ed O'Leary. We have Cindy and David McGinty and Cindy's sister Susan Quinlan. We have State Rep Betty Poria. We have Maria Stefanos. We also have with us John Hannon, Foxborough police officer, who spent time at Ground Zero working through those details, and Bruce Naslin, a Mansfield firefighter, who did the same. And we have special guests from Morrison Briggs, John Ricker and Jim Kelleher, who you'll hear more about later. I'd like to call up our first speaker, though, Senator James Timilty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everybody. It's extraordinary to see such a wonderful turnout. In the backdrop is an absolutely breathtaking monument. But this reminds me of that horrible morning where a cowardly act made our world stop turning, and we saw the lives of so many loved ones who were taken. And we think now to have this, what it is about today, is that we have responded here tonight, much like we did after that quiet morning on September 11th, and on the 12th, we all came together. We bought flags, we cared for each other. The first responders from all across the country went to help and identify remains. It showed that what Al-Qaeda and what they thought they could do to us was to destroy our life. That's what they wanted, the best country in the world with the freedoms that we all enjoy. They wanted to destroy our way of life, and instead, it just showed the American people, their capacity to endure such a savage act and to respond and to come together. And I think as we pay homage to this wonderful, wonderful monument, and we think of the McGinty family and the Rothberg family who lost so many, and those across the country, just reminds us to God bless our first responders, God bless our men and women in the military, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Representative Jay Barrows, please.
Good afternoon and thank you. And congratulations to the Foxborough Never Forgets Committee for making this dedication possible today. And especially to Chris Mitchell and his family for his vision, his leadership, and his perseverance to make this memorial a reality. We stand here today in remembrance of just what can happen in a split second. How it can change a nation forever. This memorial stands tall to remember not only our great losses on September 11th, but as a reminder to future generations as to why protecting our nation's rights and freedom is so imperative. Tomorrow we will all, no doubt, pause to remember where we were and where our loved ones were on that fateful day. However, it does not have to be in sorrow and grief. We should take time to honor the quality and the greatness of those lives that were lost, and to observe how we, as a country and a community, have grown in the 10 years since that horrific September morning. I will never forget the overwhelming feeling that followed hearing the first plane had struck the Twin Towers in New York City. Going about my day like all of you, I was just getting out of my car in front of the Mansfield Post Office, listening to the radio. At that moment, no one had any idea of what was ahead for us or the magnitude of the loss that our country would suffer. Today, as a nation, we watched the second plane hit as the New York skyline filled with smoke and debris, and a third plane hit the Pentagon in our nation's capital. News broadcasts then reported how a group of brave passengers and crew on Flight 93 lost their lives in thwarting yet another attempt of terror on our nation's capital. It was then clear that our country, the greatest in the world, was under attack. Adding to the horror, we learned that the flights originated from Boston, possibly carrying our friends and neighbors. True to our American spirit, something quite extraordinary and moving began to happen. A country that is so often divided began to form an unbreakable force of unity that would continue to strengthen in the months to come. Citizens came together to help complete strangers. Thousands left their own families in that terrifying moment to put others before themselves and save as many lives as possible. That day, firefighters, police, EMTs, and volunteers responded in the wake of 9/11, demonstrated valor and courage, unmatched and beyond imagination. Patriotism in the United States began to take on a whole new meaning. Around the country, people were feeling connected, willing to put aside differences to support one another in a great time of need. We must not become complacent in our safety or the freedoms we enjoy. Through memorials like the one we celebrate today, we should remember the people in the events, but most importantly, commit the lessons from September 11th to our memory, the love of country and our ability to stand together in crisis. We owe it to people who lost their lives that day, to Michael McGinney of Foxborough, and to the families that were left to mourn, to never forget them in our community. The history of September 11th, 2001 has now been written. We can hope that our hearts will never again see such suffering. Our footnote on that sad chapter would be how we stood tall, stood strong, and stood together on our nation's darkest days. Foxborough's legacy in the course of these events is now memorialized to honor the sacrifices made by one of our own. I leave you with a quote from Mayor Giuliani's opening remarks to the United Nations General Assembly on October 1st, 2001. This massive attack was intended to break our spirit. It has not done that. It has made us stronger, more determined, and more resolved. Today, Foxborough is a shining example of just that. Thank you, and God bless Foxborough, Massachusetts.
Would now like to ask Cindy McGinty to come up.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody here and everybody who's not here who gave nickels, dimes, $10, $20, large donations, small donations, donations of time, services, to make this all possible. I know Chris was the idea man. I know that he put in lots and lots of hours, but I think everybody owns a part of this in many ways, and I want to thank you all for that. It means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Chris and his family that you all participated in this. Many of you know the story of how Chris and I got to be friends, but for those of you who don't, shortly after 9/11, I looked out my window and I saw this guy mowing my grass, and I remember breathing a sigh of relief because one of my biggest fears was that everybody would know where the widow McGinty lived simply by driving by my lawn and seeing it overgrown with weeds and things. And I went out to talk to Chris and offered to pay him, and he, said, kind of, this is what I do, don't worry about it, just watch out for your kids. And over the years, I went out almost every week and said kind of the same thing, and for 8 years, Chris mowed my lawn nonstop until I finally had to move to get him to stop cutting my grass. So that'll teach you to cut somebody's grass, Chris. But, what Chris got was the importance of a few things here. He got the importance of teaching and remembering. He got the importance of service and a call to action. So today, here we stand in Foxboro on this glorious day, not unlike the day that changed America 10 years ago. We're all here to dedicate this memorial to the brave souls that came together to save lives that day. But this is so important because something bigger happened that day. It was a day that the world took a collective sigh and paused a minute, and it might have even stopped for a second, but then it took a collective sigh and it started breathing again. And I want you to think about what happened that day and picture it for a minute. It was sunny and clear, just like today, kind of warm out, and very early in the morning, some young men boarded a plane with nothing but bad intentions. And yes, they used planes as bombs. But what happened was that passengers and flight crews, strangers really, banded together and tried to stop them. Brave souls saved lives, firemen and policemen, knowing that they were probably running into certain death, ran into buildings and saved people. Total strangers carried people down flights of stairs and out into safety, stayed on floors, some of them in the upper floors, guiding people to safety, even though they knew they were going to die. Ordinary citizens sometimes carried each other on their backs down the street to get away from buildings that were crumbling. And afterwards, people lovingly dug through rubble to recover remains, and then spent years trying to identify those remains and return them to families that loved them. And back home here in Foxborough, my own community, all of you, and my church wrapped my family in a cocoon of love. So what really happened that day was that the terrorists thought they were tearing us apart. They thought they were going to destroy us. And what they really did was they bonded us together and made us stronger. Stronger as a family, stronger as a community, and stronger as a nation. We cannot forget that feeling because that's who we are. This memorial, with the piece of steel from Ground Zero at its core, is meant to teach and to help us to never forget. It's meant to help us to remember to help each other in large and in small ways. Doesn't really matter. It just matters that you help each other. It's meant to help us to reach out and do for each other what Chris did for me that day 10 years ago. Do what we do. And so, as we go into tomorrow, which now is a National Day of Service and Remembrance, I'm proud to say that I'm a member of the Foxboro community, and Foxboro never forgets. Thank you.
I would now like to ask Mark Small, a longtime Foxborough resident, professional musician, an employee of the Berklee College of Music, to play My Country 'Tis of Thee. now I'd like to ask Joe Lally to introduce Foxborough Never Forgets founder Chris Mitchell.
An idea is but a transient thought. Most have so little value that they pass on like smoke in a high wind. However, others have more merit and are given more thought. We think how worthwhile it would be and how many would benefit from our acting on this idea. But unfortunately, we give in to all those fears, doubts, and insecurities that are all too common to the human condition. Fortunately, there are those amongst us who have the courage, intelligence, and tenacity to make a dream reality. Thank God Foxborough was blessed with such a man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chris Mitchell.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out tonight for this great turnout. There are a million people I have to thank, and I don't have the time tonight to do that. A few people I have to thank. My lovely wife, Paula. Couldn't have done it without her. My treasurer, who was foolish enough to answer the phone that day, I called her to ask for a little help, Teresa Todd. Ellen Davis for planning this ceremony, thank you. A good friend of mine, Mark Sullivan, helped me out day and night on this, and there's no way this would have been done without Mark. So Mark, thank you very much. Excuse me, I have a cold. December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, Pearl Harbor. November 22nd, 1963, the day John Fitzgerald Kennedy was assassinated. September 11th, 2001, as Alan Jackson sings, "The Day the World Stopped Turning." These are some of the dates that significantly changed the history of America. I didn't live through Pearl Harbor or the JFK assassination. I learned about them through the history books and the stories from parents and grandparents. They all knew where they were and what they were doing when they heard the news. Just like most of us here today will never forget where we were and what we were doing when we heard the news of the attacks in New York, Washington, and Shanksville. It is our job to educate the future generations about that day. This memorial was designed to do that, to honor the past and educate the future. What I would like to educate the future about this tragic day in history is the days after September 11th, 2001. How this country came together as a nation to pray, help each other, and vow to rebuild. Think back to the weeks and months after September 11th. Strangers greeted each other in the streets. American flags decorated everyone's front porch. Lines grew longer at blood drives, and families filled church pews. It was the way I feel this country should be every day. In 2009, the President signed into law the Serve America Act. This bill, sponsored by the late Senator Kennedy, made September 11th a national day of service and remembrance. This law makes America stronger by encouraging community service, or as I like to call it, volunteering. Foxborough is full of volunteers, PTO members, youth sports coaches, selectmen, school committee members, scout leaders, the list goes on and on. This town runs on volunteerism. And the best part about volunteering in a town like this is the people you meet. I have made some lifelong friendships and have many good memories over the past 20 years or so that I have been involved with this community. I am proud to call Foxborough home. My hope is that this organization, Foxborough Never Forgets, has inspired some of you to get more involved in helping others and become part of this community of volunteers. In one of my favorite quotes, Winston Churchill says, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." These words illustrate the values of service and giving back that our Foxborough community stands for. The construction of this memorial was one of the most amazing displays of volunteerism I have ever seen. There were over 60 different people that gave their time and talents almost every weekend since we broke ground on June 2nd. And I think Sully yelled at just about all of you. We would not have this dedication today without all of your hard work and determination. Thank you very much. This memorial took over 2,000 working hours to complete. That's 2,000 hours of volunteering at its finest. To all the people that helped with the fundraising, who donated money or materials, thank you. Raising money in these tough economic times was very difficult, but through the generosity of so many people, we now have this memorial to honor the past and educate the future. Larry, Board of Selectmen, Foxborough Never Forgets came before you in February of 2010 to ask your permission to build a September 11th memorial for the town of Foxborough. Through the hard work and support of so many people, I am proud to say, mission accomplished. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A couple of quick details about when we started this. There is a room in this new public safety building named after Michael McGinty. Everybody in town calls it the McGinty Room. For the last 6 months, it's my office. So thanks, guys, for letting me use it. First day I walked in there, it's beautifully decorated, flags, nice plaques. There was a picture of Mike, the picture that has been in the newspapers and on the TV. It wasn't a great big picture. I said to myself, you know, we need to do something about that. Mike was a great man, Naval Academy grad, so we need a picture, a painting. There was a painter in town that volunteered. I didn't even have to voluntold him. So I would like to have B.J. Bork come up and unveil the portrait of Michael McGinty, please.
I hope I did him justice.
How do you like it, Cindy? Thank you, BJ. Good job. A lot of time, besides the building of this, a lot of time went into the design, the planning. We had a committee that helped us, some of the selectmen, police chief, fire chief. Two gentlemen that I would like to introduce and come up to briefly describe the memorial have been unbelievable. A lot of thought went into this. When you people walk through it and see how they captured every aspect of that day and the days after, it truly is amazing. I'd like to introduce John Ricker and Jim Kelleher from Morrison Beggs Memorial.
Well, Chris, on behalf of all the volunteers and all the members of the Foxborough community, would like to give you this small tribute. It's a plaque that is taken from the granite of the memorial, and it says, "Foxborough never forgets Chris Mitchell." Thank you, Chris.
lived in Foxborough most of my life, and I was honored to have Chris and his committee choose me to do the design work and supply the granite for this project, for this memorial. It's been a lot of work, but it's been well worth it. Jim Kelleher and myself took the project from concept to final approval to completion, and you see what it is now. For a quick overview, as you take a walk down the path here, you start your walk and you'll have a plaque on the post of the building with an overview of what transpired on the day of 9/11/2001. As you move further down, you have 3 pedestals, a bronze plaque on each, describing what happened as a result of the attack on each of the locations. Moving further down, walk down the plaza, and walk into the plaza, you have 3 benches in front of you, each one inscribed with the location and time of the attacks. In front of those, we have an upper plaza, and we have bronze medallions, one for each branch of the service, one for the fire, New York Fire, Police, and Port Authority. In front of that, we have the towers, and at the base of the towers, we have a piece of steel from the World Trade Center. The towers are granite from Pennsylvania, each one weighing in excess of 3 tons. We've done 4 different finishes on the surface of them. The top you'll see is a polished finish representing the towers as they were prior to the attacks. From there, the finish changes from polish to honed to unpolished to flamed. The flamed representing the total destruction of the towers that day. I thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
The next part of our ceremony will start with a ribbon cutting. And on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to ask Mark Sullivan to do that ribbon cutting. Scissors, I think, are over there, Mark. Cindy, scissors are right over there. Cindy, would you join him, please?
Black detail, hooray, hoot!
We will now read each of the bronze plaques and then unveil them. To read the first plaque, the overall, I'd like to ask Patrick Mitchell, 3rd-year cadet at the United States Military Academy at West Point, to come forward.
Overview. Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, began like every other day in America. Men and women went to work, mothers and fathers sent their children off to school, but by mid-morning, the news had reached Foxborough and the world. The United States of America was under attack. 19 members of Al-Qaeda, an international terrorist organization, had hijacked 4 commercial airplanes and intended to crash them into buildings in the United States. Their strategy was simple: grab the attention of the world by attacking the core of democracy. By showing they could murder Americans, Al-Qaeda hoped to strike fear into the hearts of all those who defend democracy, human rights, and the basic freedoms we hold dear. But Al-Qaeda failed. Far from creating terror, the attacks on that day strengthened our patriotism. From the ashes on that day rose a phoenix, a renowned dedication to the ideals that have made this country great. Citizens of the world were reminded that buildings may fall, but freedom is forever. This memorial was made possible by the contributions of many patriotic Americans. This piece of steel from the World Trade Center, a gift from the city of New York, is a physical reminder that the lessons of September 11th are not lost in history. Whatever the future holds for the United States, the events of that day will continue to humble and inspire us. To honor the past and educate the future, Foxborough never forgets.
To read the World Trade Center plaque, Debbie Spinelli, Superintendent of Schools.
The World Trade Center. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11, hijacked en route from Boston to Los Angeles, crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. A second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, struck the South Tower at 9:03 a.m. Many people were killed instantly, and others died as the skyscrapers burned and eventually collapsed. Altogether, 2,753 innocent people lost their lives in New York that day, including 343 firefighters, 23 police officers, and 37 Port Authority police who ran into the burning buildings to save lives.
To read the Pentagon plaque, I'd like to ask Mike Johns, Foxborough Veterans Agent, and Navy veteran to come forward.
Pentagon. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the United States Department of Defense. This five-sided building, one of the most secure fortresses in the world, is home to information and programs that keep us safe. It is also a famous symbol of American military strength. Though the damage to the building was quickly repaired, 184 innocent people were killed in this attack, including 59 passengers and crew members on the plane, along with 125 people on the ground.
And now to read the Shankville plaque, Bob Siteman, who is chair of the Foxborough Veterans Council and a veteran of the Army and the Navy.
Shanksville, Pennsylvania. By mid-morning, news of the attacks had spread around the country. When terrorists took control of United Airlines Flight 93 over Pennsylvania, the passengers on board quickly figured out that this hijacking was part of a coordinated attack. Assuming that the terrorists were planning to crash the plane into another important building, some of the passengers fought back and tried to retake the plane. In the struggle that followed, the plane crashed in a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania at 10:03 a.m. All 40 innocent people on board died, but the heroic actions of the passengers saved the intended target, which was presumed to be the U.S. Capitol building or the White House.
For the benediction, I'd ask Pastor Paul Sangri to come forward.
Let us pray. Lord, today we do remember, and on many of us have our minds go back to that day 10 years ago and all the things that happened. But as we stand here together today, we are grateful We are grateful for one another. We are grateful for Cindy and David here. We're grateful for Chris and Paula and their leadership, and so many others who helped to make this memorial possible. And we are grateful that this memorial reminds us that for those who offer hatred, we offer hope. That for those who offer fear, we offer faith. And for those who are lost, we offer love. And that because of this memorial, we will never forget. We thank you, Lord God. Amen.
We are going to close the ceremony with two songs, God Bless America and Amazing Grace. And as we finish the first song, we welcome all of you to come up and to walk through the memorial while Amazing Grace is playing. So if Laura and Madeline Canfield would come forward, we'll sing God Bless America together. Thank you.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Black detail, fall in. Detail, attack, hey! Right, hey! Forward, hey! Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right. Left, 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 right, left, 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 left. Oh, you got that. I told you before. It would be down when it put it to me. Yeah, I usually try to figure it out. I went back to that one. Yeah. How are you? How are you? Put it right there.
Good stuff. Great. Great to see you, buddy. I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll be late, but coming from Norfolk.